What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Those who constantly buy spare parts can realistically assess the state of the spare parts market. That's why today we go for statistics to the repair and tuning service. Here we constantly have to order parts and consumables for many cars, so the employees definitely have an idea of the situation. Let's specify at once, all this material is not an attempt to extrapolate the experience of one car service to the whole Russian spare parts market, but a clear vision of the situation on a concrete example. And we will begin with a live story from the service. The price of saving money: a 2015 Mercedes-Benz GLC has arrived for repair. There is a problem: the airflow sensor does not quite count this air correctly. What can be wrong? The flow meter itself, aka MAF, is a very delicate thing. The main element of this sensor is a platinum filament, which is energized. The filament heats up. When air passes through the sensor, it cools it down, the resistance of the thread changes, and the engine control unit calculates how much air the engine consumes. MAF is in the air line between the air filter and the throttle. If there is an unaccounted hole in the air line after the MAF sensor, the ECU cannot understand how much air the engine actually consumes. Part of the air is not counted by the flow meter. Here we have either suction if the leakage is located before the turbine, or supercharged air leakage if the leakage is detected after it. The first thing to check in this case is the tightness of the intake. Here they also found a hole in the crankcase gas ventilation system, a common fault on these cars, but the client refused to repair it. He decided to eliminate the fault himself. He fixed it, but soon returned to the service, and already on a tow truck, the car got even worse. What was the reason? Diagnostics showed that the nature of the error had changed. If earlier it pointed to unreliable calculation of air consumption, now it blamed the flow meter directly for all the troubles: incorrect operation of the sensor. We had to deal with the sick Mercedes further. Immediately we paid attention to the fact that the car is equipped with a disgusting Chinese air filter of one company, whose filters should not be bought. This filter is very linty, which a decent filter should not do. The filter was replaced, but we decided to check the MAF sensor itself. It was full of dust and dirt, which was successfully passed by the poor quality filter. And any dust particle settled on the threads of the flow meter changes its resistance and therefore its ability to work correctly. The sensor was cleaned, but it was not possible to restore its full health, and it will have to be replaced. It costs 82,000 rubles now, although a few months ago it could be bought for 20. However, even for 82,000 this sensor still needs to be found, although the owner of the car was lucky, he picked up a good analog for 26,000. But why did I tell this sad story? The whole point is that it became difficult to buy a good air filter for Mercedes, and the owner of the car decided to save money on it. The original filter costs 8,000, which is just terrible for an air filter, and decent analogs in the neighborhood of 6,000. The Chinese one, as cheap as possible, was bought for 3. It would seem that 5,000 is a very decent saving when it comes to some kind of filter. But here's the problem: now we have to spend 82, or at least 26,000 on the MAF. And wait for it to come, because the main problem is not a monstrous rise in prices for spare parts for European cars, but their shortage. Alas, warehouses are emptying and the situation will not get better in the foreseeable future. Most of the spare parts are simply not available anywhere. Those that are still left are sold for fabulous prices. True, not all motorists should pull the hair on their heads in despair. There are spare parts for some cars. More expensive than they were, but at least they are available. For which ones, I will tell you below. The supplier of oil for the service does not say anything happy either. According to him, imported oils are not imported at all. But a lot of counterfeits are appearing, and according to his statistics, the leader among counterfeits is Shell oil, now about 80% of this oil on the market is fake. It is almost impossible to find original oils for example, Mercedes or BMW, Castrol in brand packaging. And if you can, it is very expensive. For example, for the same diesel BMW canister will cost 14,000 rubles. However, there is good news. There are rumors that there are advances in the supply of additives for the manufacture of their own oil. And we have our own base, both mineral and synthetic. So there is hope that problems with oil will be solved in the future. And now, for example, my oil, which I have always poured into my cars in this service, costs 9,600 for a canister under the order with delivery within 5 days. Before February it cost 3,200 and 2 months ago 7,400. And no currency swings have anything to do with it, it is all the fault of the shortage. And one piece of advice, now it makes sense to switch to Japanese oils, the prices for which have also risen, but not so much, and they are much less counterfeited. If you want to stay with the usual European oil, do not trust the low prices in some stores, there are a lot of counterfeits, you need to be on the lookout. The situation with gear oils is the same, there are almost none, and those that are available are very expensive. Or counterfeit. The good thing is that this oil is changed much less often than motor oil. The bad thing is that the dream of marketers has come true, and now we will definitely have automatic boxes in which the oil is filled. For the whole service life. Alas, this term will be short. But let's get back to spare parts. The main problem faced by owners of German cars is not even the lack of rare parts, but the lack of what are usually called consumables. For some BMW motors, partners from a specialized service can't even buy oil filters. They don't have them in stock, not even Chinese ones. The same problem with fresh diesel Mercedes, there are no filters available. You can still find them to order, but it is getting more and more difficult. Recently we could hardly find a good oil filter for Audi Q5. And here the trouble is that no one prevents suppliers from gladly accepting orders for a couple of months and the day before delivery to inform that the order has not come and will not come. Such offers are becoming more and more, and you should not believe that everything is fine, let's prepay and we will bring you a whole trunk of spare parts from Finland. The number of those who like to twist other people's money is growing rapidly. What to do in this case? If you can't find spare parts, you may even have to put your German on the shelf. According to my interlocutors, the problem will become more acute by the fall, and many people will have to either finish the car as it is, or put it in storage, or sell it. In any case, one of the customers with a BMW X1 has already decided to throw his car under the fence. There is no turbine cartridge anywhere. And soon, apparently, possession of old RAV4 will be much more prestigious than possession of fresh BMW X5. The first is much easier to service, but with the second there will be inevitable and almost unsolvable issues. And if any throttle or intake manifold will fly at this X5, the car will become real estate. By the way, it is surprising that there are spare parts for Japanese cars. Both new and contract ones. They are mostly brought to us through the Emirates, and they have been doing it for a long time. So long ago that no new logistics chains had to be built, the spare parts were coming as they were. But in the case of European and some other spare parts, there is another worrying sign. If a couple of months ago you could buy a lot of things for 30 to 40% cheaper, but with a delivery time of several days, now the cost of spare parts in stock and on order is slowly leveling off. Apparently, the optimism about the establishment of new logistics chains is gradually coming to naught. There comes, as politicians and journalists like to say now, disappointment. What if we start with a showdown? There are still spare parts at scrap yards. It is clear that you cannot buy oil and any other filters there, but you can buy something from iron. True, at fabulous prices. And these prices are clearly taken from the ceiling. For example, recently the search of the transmission mounting support cushion on the 10th Lancer led to a strange discovery at the same very large seller. The new support cost 2,900 rubles and the killed contract 3,200. Why? Who knows why? But residents of the Far East are lucky. The quality of contract Japanese parts is much higher than European ones and the prices are much lower. And logistics is simpler, so there are fewer such problems there. Tension with spare parts is growing. People have become a bit more forgiving about prices, but it is, alas, impossible to put up with the lack of parts and consumables. And it seems that a person is ready to pay an abnormal 3,000 rubles for good oil, but there is simply no oil. But there is still a future for junkyards. Perhaps some cars will be massively bought up and sold for dismantling, so it will still be possible to drive on someone's corpses and bones. But not for long. And another issue is also disturbing: cars will be not only bought up for dismantling, but also stolen. And the further, the more. In the foreseeable future, the cost per kilometer of a European car may become such that this car will finally become a luxury, not a means of transportation. And not only S63 AMG, but also Volkswagen Polo sedan. But those who drive on Koreans and Japanese now feel on a horse everything is more expensive than it was, but in plenty. Perhaps people driving VAZs can still be called happy now. They do not come to this service, but it is obviously easier for them to live than Mercedes owners. This is such a socialist paradox. Owners of GM cars are less lucky than owners of Japanese and Korean cars, but more than fans of Germans there is no noticeable shortage. There is only a cosmic rise in prices for spare parts. For example, a decent valve cover gasket for Opel Astra with a 14-net engine now costs 4.5 to 5,000 rubles, and earlier it cost 1 to 1.2 thousand. It has become much more expensive for GM owners to live, but at least it is possible. We will not talk about the owners of purebred Americans. Hold on, we pray for you. What can we think of? The first thing that comes to mind is Chinese parts. Maybe the owner of the long-suffering Mercedes was just unlucky. Not really. The quality of many of these parts is still unstable and often low, so you can put them only at your own risk and in case of extreme desperation. And we cannot say that the Chinese have flooded our warehouses with their parts. It is not so. There is something, of course, but not everything. Another way to maintain a German, the most problems with them nowadays, is to buy Japanese contract parts in the Far East. It is clear that shipping takes a lot of time, but still it is a way out. As I have already said, the quality of these parts is higher than in the European part of Russia, and the assortment is quite wide. A lot of things can be brought from there. And, of course, many are pinning their hopes on the development of the repair industry. Of course, this will lead to a decrease in the quality of repair. New units are almost always better than reconditioned ones, but this measure is forced and inevitable. Parallel imports will help us. It would be impossible to prepare the material and not ask suppliers, what about parallel imports? When should we wait for grey parts? They have authorized it, it's time to bring it in. The answer from the representative of the logistics chain is not very optimistic. It is smooth only on paper. But in life everything is different. There are several problems that have yet to be solved to make this import work. The first is obvious: the usual supply channels and logistics chains have been destroyed. Let's assume that we will restore them. But there is another issue. For some reason, many manufacturers actively oppose shipments for parallel imports. They do not want us to import their spare parts without demand, and that's it. Well, our bureaucracy actively helps this. Importation without the manufacturer's right holders' authorization seems to be allowed. But nobody cancelled the certification procedure for most goods. And what is certification? That's right, obtaining permits and additional documents from the same manufacturer or right holder. The circle is closed. Probably, these issues will be resolved at some point. But how long it will take is still unclear. We thank the company Speed Lab. Motor tuning, https://labo-f-speed. Sue for help in preparation of the material. In conclusion, the dynamics of the spare parts market are shifting dramatically, with German manufacturers facing significant challenges, while Korean companies are emerging as leaders. As we have seen, factors such as supply chain disruptions, technological advancements, and changing consumer demands are reshaping the landscape. The triumph of Korean firms highlights their adaptability and innovation in meeting market needs. As we move forward, it will be crucial to monitor these trends and their implications for the global economy. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more insights on this evolving market.